broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine. I'll be your webinar facilitator today. I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for the Central Controller Competitive Comparison webinar. As a brief reminder, all lines are currently on mute to prevent background noise. If you have questions during the presentation, go ahead and type them into your chat box. We'll be happy to answer at the end of the webinar. This morning, it's my pleasure to welcome back Bev Nadia Tia, VRV Controls Engineer. Bev, you may now begin the webinar.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar. And today we're going to talk about the Central Controller Competitive Comparison. We're going to try to compare our ITM versus competitors. So we're going to talk about the ITM features and how it compares to competitors. And then we're going to talk about spec blocking and how we can use our features in order to blocking competitors. Then we're gonna go over quickly the competition analysis. So as most of you guys know already, the ITM is a color touch screen, 10-inch screen. It could be surface mount or flush mount. I'm just gonna go over. I think most of you guys are already aware of this. We can do automatic indoor unit registration and indoor unit model detection. This function supported by the ITM. Not all competitors have the same easy commissioning method, but it will be highlighted in the next slide. Power supply requires 24-volt power supply. iTouch Manager can manage one D3net system, which is 64 group address, or when we can add the ITM plus adapter, we can go up to 512 group address or 1,024 indoor units. We can add the 7 ITM plus adapter to the ITM. You can use a USB flash drive that will be used in multiple locations in the ITM for the presetting tool, for upload or download data to the ITM. Also used when you're doing software update to the ITM. So starting from version 2.06, we added the operation data of the outdoor unit, and all the sensor of the indoor unit can be saved and stored in the ITM, and after that user can download it over web browser or USB drive. So this function added from version 2.06. And this is required to use the AirNet engineering tool and commissioning. And we did another webinar before how to use the AirNet commissioning to enable the operation data. More feature about the ITM. We support dual set point using tracking mode that can maintain the set point differential. In single set point, we have minimum differential of 0, and also tracking mode can be used. ITM can also set point range limitation. We do independent setback set point. Recovery temperature for the setback is plus or minus 4 degrees. Some competitors, they don't have that function. Their recovery temperature is fixed as specific degrees Fahrenheit. But our recovery temperature for the setback is configurable. Regarding the scheduling, we have the 7-day schedule, or 5-day plus Saturday and Sunday, or 5 days plus weekend, or everyday schedule. This is also configurable from the schedule function. Inside the schedule function, we can do optimal start. So we can enable the unit to start early than the schedule in order to have a comfort or of the specific set point. That optimal start also is not available for all for different competitors. Room temperature display, we can use the accuracy of 0.1 Fahrenheit accuracy or 0.1 Celsius accuracy as displayed on the iTouch Manager. Auto changeover, we can do multiple auto changeover function like individual, fixed, average, and voting. And voting is one of the main features that we can compete against competitor because nobody get that voting function. Primary changeover deadband, that's also adjustable when you set up the auto changeover function. Same thing for secondary changeover deadband. From display and visual navigation side, user can use the ITM icons layout view, or we can use the floor plan layout view. So there's two different views that we can use on the ITM, and we use that floor plan layout view as another tool when we have the BACnet client, and we use graphic for other equipment using that feature. And we can do up to 60 floor plan can be created inside the ITM. And for history, ITM can record the history for up to 5,000 items inside the ITM. Web accessibility, it's free in the ITM as long as there's a username and password setup. User can log into the ITM from anywhere, even remotely. An ITM configuration setup, so whatever you can see on the ITM itself in the touch screen, that will be also visible on the web function of the ITM. So that also plus an alert email function can be added to the ITM. That's all come free with the ITM. So there is no extra license or any extra hardware required to do this. From building facility management side, there is a different way to integrate other equipment to the ITM. So if there is a lighting system, dampers, occupancy, temperature sensor, humidity sensor, all of those can be added to the ITM. There's multiple ways to do it. We can add Daikin DI/DIO board that you can connect those sensor or the equipment to it. Then this Daikin DI or DIO board can be connected to the ITM directly, or there is a Wago IO system can do the same thing as well. And the Wago IO system is more scalable, so you can add more nodes, you can add more contact to the Wago system. So that's a good, because it's very scalable, very flexible system that can tie into the ITM, and the user can look into all the different building equipment. So that's also, plus the ITM itself has 4 digital plus inputs, which could be used for during BBD function, or it could be used as a digital input to the ITM. So the first one is always dedicated as an emergency stop, and the other 3, DI2, 3, and 4, those could be used as pulse input or digital input. So basically, if you want to monitor door contact or for one of the indoor units, you can connect that directly to the ITM. Power proportional distribution function, that's optional. That's a license need to be added to the ITM based on the application, most likely in tenant building. This also function could be added to the ITM. Also the BACnet client function. From here, the ITM will act as a mini BMS. So the ITM can monitor other devices over BACnet IP protocol. The other function is the BACnet IP server function. And in that case, we are serving data points to the BMS. So server is working as opposite of the client. So server, BACnet IP server, that means we are serving data to a BMS. So most likely we'll have a BMS in the job site. And both functions are using BACnet IP. So this is architecture of the ITM, and it is capability to integrate to the VRV system using the ITM plus adapter, or directly through the D3net port. And also in the left-hand side is the integration with different equipment in the building, like fan, lighting, pump, dedicated outside air supply system. All of those can be tied into the ITM through the Wago IO or through BACnet IB. And also, if there is a BMS on the side, in the job site, you can add the ITM BACnet server gateway function. Then the ITM will act as a gateway. So that's an overall view of the architecture of the ITM. So if we compare some of the ITM feature to competitors like Mitsubishi, LG, Samsung, JCI, or Panasonic, number of indoor units connected to the ITM or group address connected to the ITM, Daikin basically gets a higher number of connectivity using one single hardware as an ITM plus the adapters. Everybody else is kind of they get less number of indoor units. to connect with. Dual set point, most of them get dual set point. History storage, Daikin has the highest history storage inside the ITM, as 500,000 items that can be stored in the ITM as a history. So that history could be error history, could be log history, change history, someone login over the web, different items. It's not history of logs. It's different error history, control history. All of those can be stored on the ITM. Outdoor unit operation data. I mean, so far we can store data for main outdoor unit and sub 1 and sub 2 outdoor units. If you look into LG system, when they use the AC Smart 4, they can only use data for the main. Mitsubishi and everybody else, they don't have it except Panasonic. They also get similar capability, but we provide the most data points. So if you want to look at number of data points that are recorded into the ITM, I think Daikin has a lot of data being recorded. Most of the sensor of the outdoor unit and all the sensor on the indoor units will be recorded on the ITM. If you look into optimal start, I think I give it as a yellow star or golden star. So Daikin is above the competitor in this. Maybe Mitsubishi is close. Auto indoor unit registration. I think we also have advantage in this. Floor layout, Mitsubishi and LG can do the same thing, but floor layout could be used in Daikin system as a graphical user interface when you use the BACnet client. So that's why I think this is a very good advantage, and we use that very, very good in different projects. So that's why I give it as Daikin's rare advantage. I give it that golden star. In BACnet server option, Mitsubishi and LG, they kind of start having similar function. In the more slides, I'm going to talk about the difference between our server function versus their server function. BACnet client, basically having the ITM as a mini BMS in a job site, that's higher advantage. Or when the job go to bed and someone tries to speak Daikin, definitely we are kind of the cheapest and the best way to use Daikin system in that job, because the advantage of having client function of the ITM. So no one has that function in their centralized controller. So that's a very highly superior advantage for Daikin. Remote monitoring and prediction notification. So in DNet service can be used on the ITM. So the ITM will act as a gateway for the DNet service. So nobody else gets a DNet or similar service except to get Panasonic, and Panasonic is not that big in the US market yet. So if we look into the ITM, when we integrate to the Wago IO kit, so Daikin can integrate 512 indoor units and up to 650 total points can be integrated to the ITMs. It could be indoor units or it could be Wago IO points. And from the Wago IO structure, we can add like 30 Wago nodes, and each node can have 120 points or 120 sensors can be connected to each. So that's a big system. If you think about scalability and how you can put that in a different job site or in different location in different nodes and add all of this data to the ITM, that's giving the ITM itself higher advantage versus competitors. So in LG, they can add 128 indoor units. They can use their extended IO module. They can up to 9 nodes, 7 indoor unit production per node, and that will give them some limitation in that node. So each node has 4 analog output, 3 digital output, 3 digital inputs, and 4 analog input. It's not scalable like our node. Our node can be 120 points, and all of those points, all of them could be DI, all of them could be DO, all of them could be AI, or you can mix whatever you want. And plus the flexibility that we have in order to select which IO card to use. So you could have a digital inputs card for a channel, or you could use a DI 8 channel card. And that will provide a lot of flexibility against LG and Mitsubishi as well. So Mitsubishi system, they do not have extended I/O module that can add to their centralized controller, but they have to use Tritium system. So Tritium system, they add their JACE, and after that they add their I/O module, and then all of this data will be into the JACE. So that's how we compare integration between our ITM to the Wago I/O kit. If we look into the BBD function, so this table it has a lot of details about specification that we do in our ITM versus LG, the PDI standard and PDI premium, and the Mitsubishi controller, and also the Toshiba controller. The only issue about the BBDs, there is not that much data available from the competitors. So in that table, I tried to put all the data that I found online. The only thing I can highlight here is the number of indoor units that make us higher advantage, especially in multi-tenant building. Usually those buildings are using a lot of indoor units. So a lot of those buildings use one ITM or sometimes two ITMs if the building is huge. But if you look into other competitors, their hardware is very limited to number of indoor units. So in that case, you need to use a lot of hardware devices in order to connect all the indoor units. If you look into the way that they integrate the energy meter to their controller, most of them use pulses, so the same as our ITM required pulses output from the energy meter, and that will be tied into the centralized controller. LG Premium can use RS485 connection and also Toshiba. How many pulses that we can add to the system, or how many pulse input? An ITM itself is 3 pulse input. I think the LG PDI Premium can do 8 pulse input. If you look into the pulse widths, and sometimes in those projects, people complain about, hey, we use that energy meter, it's not working correctly, and what we should do, and we tell them, hey, you guys didn't use the correct meter, and we send out an engineering note about how the BBD function work and what is the recommended energy meters, and definitely that should be used before start looking into designing the project and look into which meter to select and of all of these details. But in the other hand, if you look into other competitors, most of them they have the same requirements regarding the pulse details. So the pulse width, pulse interval, and the pulse signal, LG and Mitsubishi, they almost get similar requirements. So just be careful when you're designing your job with selecting the meter. Make sure that you select the correct meter that we recommend in order to avoid any issues that may occur. Data saving of the energy consumption data saving, we saved it over a USB drive. It's a CSV file downloaded to USB drive over the web or over the web. In LG, they need to be also saved in a PC, and the same thing for Mitsubishi using a CSV file. We published the engineering note, and we talked about how our BBD data calculated and how the energy consumption calculated, to try to explain that as much as possible. If you look at other competitors, there's no documentation explaining how that works. So just for you to be aware. If we're gonna talk about spec blocking and how can use the ITM feature spec blocking, if the engineer put similar sentence like those here, this is just an example, but you guys can create your own, but those are a very good way to block against competitors. So here we're saying if central controller shall support auto changeover based on voting method. So we are basically the only one can do the voting method, so that against everybody else. So that's definitely a plus to us. Second one is if central controller shall support automatic indoor unit registration and automatic indoor unit model number detection. That's also we can go against any other competitors, and nobody can do this. VRF central control shall be able to view up to 500,000 history event. Again, against all competitors, nobody can do this. VRF Central Control Share Program and optimal start on a daily schedule. So that's again is other competitor also that's a higher advantage to us. Single VRF central control shall be able to control 1024 inter-unit extension. So all of those different spec blocking can be used, and he can work with the engineer in order to have that on the spec. I'm not going to go over all of them, but you can read it and see. I mean, the other one, if in a big project that you are planning to using the DNet service later on, VRF manufacturing shall provide remote monitoring service with the use of VRF central controller as a gateway. That's also, I think, it's a good blocking sentence that can be added to the spec. When we talk about the ITM BACnet client, as you already know, or most of you already know, that the ITM itself, the ITM client is a license that can be added to the Hitachi Manager, and that can be happening at any time during the project cycle. So after commissioning the project, you can go back and add the client function, and from here you can add any other equipment to the ITM. It could be a lighting system, exhaust fan, any sensors, lighting, any equipment in the building can be integrated to the ITM over BACnet IP. And we teach on the ITM BACnet commissioning class how to do that commissioning. So when you use that function, sometimes the owner requests for, I mean, most of the time they request for how to display those equipment in a graphic display, and we developed it's a GBEC files that can be used as a graphic display, and after that we can drag and drop all the data points inside that graphic display, similar to the picture that's shown here. So you can have display all the set points, unit status, all the alarm will be displayed on the graphic. And if we don't have any of those graphic for specific equipment, you can create an image and you can put the graphics on it. You can create your own graphics and customize it as you want, and you put the data points on top of it. So that's how we used our BACnet client as a mini BMS system. So to use the BACnet client in a spec blocking, so we can use also those sentence, something like VRF controller shall act as BACnet operator workstation. So BACnet operator workstation, that means we are the front end, which in other competitors, they have to go to actual full-blown BMS system to do that job. With the ability to integrate to VRF fan, coil unit, ventilation, air, mini split, and third-party equipment with BACnet protocol. So this is very good in a small project or in a medium project that required a BMS, and here you can use the ITM, the VRV system, in order to block competitors to use with the use of the BACnet client function. So you can use this sentence and work with engineer again. Something very good here, the VRF central control should provide graphical user interface for third-party equipment. So again, as long as nobody can have the option of the BACnet client, so nobody can do that. So nobody can do the graphic user interface as we can. If we're gonna talk about the server function, so again, the server function is kind of the opposite of the client. Usually, if you have a job that required server function, that means there's a BMS in that job site. And our server function, we can provide indoor unit data and outdoor unit data to the BMS. So indoor unit data can be monitored and controlled. Outdoor unit data is monitoring only, and we can provide data for each outdoor unit, main or sub outdoor unit. And that's up to 128 BACnet device. So every indoor unit or every outdoor unit will act as a device. Every outdoor unit system will act as one device. And after that, the points will show up in the BACnet network under each device. And we also teach on the ITM BACnet commissioning class how to commission the BACnet server and how to provide the outdoor unit data to the BMS integrator. If we compare our ITM versus LG and Mitsubishi BACnet server device, our ITM got touch screen control, also the AC Smart from LG and Mitsubishi, and the AE200 BACnet virtual routing function. It's only available from us, so that means every indoor unit and every outdoor unit system act as one device. We also synchronize the name, and whatever name you put in the ITM, it will show up on the BACnet network. All the data points under each device are the same for indoor units, so that provide a good way for the integrator to create graphics in the front end or to create programming in the front end. Much easier for them to use. Indoor unit control points. All the VRF manufacturer can provide indoor unit control points. Indoor unit operation data, which is basically all the sensor and all the temperature sensor on the indoor unit's EEV position. We can provide that. Also the LG multi-site. Outdoor unit operation data for the main outdoor units. We can do it. LG, yes. For sub outdoor unit, our ITM can do it, but in the multi-site, yes, as BACnet points. Backup data for the 5 days, so operation data for the last 5 days, it is available in our ITM. In the LG, it's not clear exactly what it is. I can see it from their engineering manual screenshot, but I didn't see any function of saving those data. So again, our advantage is using that virtual routing function, and that make our system very easy to integrate with. It can act as VEV jobs for the integrator. All the devices looks the same. All the points under each device looks the same. That makes the integration is very, very easy between us and the BMS system. Daikin can offer the operation data, so whatever data are provided to the BMS, we also save those data as an operation value into the ITM for the last 5 days in 1 minute interval. That's also another good feature advantage for us. Indoor unit EEV position and discharge air temperature for the FXMQ is also available as a BACnet point. Defrost, oil return, freeze protection status, also all of those available as a BACnet point, and they are vary based on the indoor unit, but all of those available for the BMS integrator. So how to use the ITM BACnet server as a SPIC blocking? So if you use those similar sentences, like VRF Central Control shall connect to the BMS and provide touchscreen operation panel for backup operation. If the communication between the BMS and the VRF system is lost, so that could be a SPIC blocker. Also, if they put something like VRF control utilize BACnet virtual routing function, which is nobody have, to set individual device instance number for each indoor unit and outdoor unit, that's also considered a very good SPIC blocker. And the same thing for providing both indoor unit and outdoor unit, single and multi module for main and sub operation data. So those are different ways that the engineer can use in order to SPIC blocking against competitors. So this is just a highlight of what we can do versus competitors, but we put the multi-zone controller competitive comparison in the Daikin City, and it can be downloaded from Daikin City. If you go Daikin City and after that general controls, that's under the library, and you can download that. So last update on January 2019, and we keep updating those once we get more information, once a new product published from the other VRF manufacturing. So once we get more information, we're gonna update those. Remote controller competitive comparison, we still working on updating this, and the same thing for the BACnet interface. We currently working on updating those. So this is how the multi-zone competitive comparison looks like. It has a lot of details, a lot of data. At the bottom of the table, we also get more details for each one of those items. So feel free to take a look at it, and it's good to hear feedback from you guys. If you have any competitors information that you can share with us, that would be great, so we can update our documents as well. All right, and thank you very much for attending. And if you have any question, put it in the chat box, please.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Bev. So just a couple quick reminders. If you have questions, of course, use your chat box. We'll be happy to answer those now. I did want to mention, especially now that it's summer and or basically about to be summer, and people are busier. I did want to mention, of course, you will receive a follow-up email a little bit later today with a link to the webinar recording. So if you'd like to refer back to it or share it with someone who might be interested, as you get webinar invitations over the summer in particular, keep that in mind. If there's a webinar title you're interested in, even if you're not sure you can attend, and that's fine. We know you're busy out there doing your thing. If you register, you still will receive that follow-up email, and you can watch at your convenience. And the last thing I wanted to mention is there is a post-webinar survey, so feel free to provide some feedback. So a few questions here. One is, Mitsubishi have priority cooling application that is better than VOTE. Is that something that will be added to the Daikin system?
Yes, so we usually go to Mitsubishi DriveLink website, and that's where we get all our documentation from Mitsubishi. Otherwise, if someone shares it with us, we can look into this document and update our competitive analysis. So yeah, we actively working on updating those once we get more information.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And another, another question is, I wonder if you can speak to this. How come the ITM can control up to 512 groups, but only 128 on the BACnet server? Is that something that you can comment on?
Correct. So in the BACnet server, it's kind of added license to the ITM. So yes, you can still add 512 group address, but you have to select which data point will need to be exposed to the ITM, or which Endor unit will need to expose to the to the integrator. So the ITM currently is limited to 128 device can be exposed as a BACnet device. So if you have 512 Endor units, you have to select which one to use. Otherwise, you may use the DBAG gateway in those bigger projects.
All right, perfect. And then I think the last question is, when will we have access to all the technical points available on the ITM and BACnet server? Is that out on Daikin City, or is that something that's forthcoming?
So for ITM BACnet server, if you go to Daikin City, you will find basic information like spec sheet, some metal data sheet, engineering manual. There is more information like design guide. I believe it's already uploaded to Daikin City, but all other documents and materials will be handed over during the ITM BACnet commissioning class. So there is some information like in City, but if you go into the class for commissioning, there is more documents. If you're looking for a specific documents, if you can email us, and we can send it to you.
Okay, great. And I did want to just mention back to the question about the ITM controlling 512 groups, but only 128 on BACnet server. Norm sent in a message as an FYI. It's limited due to the ITM microprocessor capacity. So hopefully that answers the question a little bit more. Awesome. Well, that is all that I have. So I wondered if there's anything you'd like to say in closing today.
No, thank you for attending.
All right, great, Bev. Well, we appreciate it as always. I always look forward to the ongoing controls webinar series, and thank you so much for everyone who joined us today. And with that, I just want to wish you all a good rest of your day and happy selling this summer. We'll talk to you on another webinar soon. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.